What's up, YouTube? I'm here with my 1975 Ford F500. It was actually a grain truck when it started, and somebody converted it to a little dump truck, so it doesn't haul a whole lot of weight for as big as it is, but it does the job. I've actually had 5 tons of gravel in it before, and but I'm only running on front brakes, and they're not really that good. When I bought it, it needed a master cylinder, and so I put the master cylinder on there, went to go bleed the brakes, and found out that I have wheel cylinders in the rear that are bad, and a couple lines that got holes in them. So I plugged off the back brakes, bled out the front enough to drive it home, and I have hauled, like I said, one load of rock so far. But I got some work to do this spring around the property, and I got to get these back brakes fixed. I believe it's the double wheel cylinders on the back, and I've already ordered all the parts a little while ago. It was actually the end of last summer I ordered the stuff. So I'm going to tear into this rear end and see how to get these things apart. So the bad thing here, somebody has replaced some of these lug studs, and I don't know if you can see it well enough or not, but this one is far shorter than these two, and just a little bit shorter than this one. And the problem with that is a standard socket that you buy has the square in it back a little further, and the hex on the outside or towards the end. And so I actually ended up having to buy 2 separate sockets, and they are not cheap. So this is the one that's got the square just a little further back. But when you stick it on, we're riding the square at the same time we're starting to engage the hex, and I can't get that outer wheel off if I'm trying to turn that square as well. So I bought a standard heavy-duty socket. It's a little deeper, so I'm getting into all the way down on the hex before I'm engaging that square, which there's actually not even a square in the back of this one. It's just a standard looking socket. So I'm gonna see if I can get these rear wheels off, and then I got to figure out tearing into this stuff here, because this is I'm pretty sure it's a full floating axle, which I know absolutely nothing about, but we're gonna learn today. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Harbor Freight tools. Yeah. I don't know if you can see the thickness. This is my cheater pipe, and it is I don't know, 4.5 feet long. Plus I had a piece of galvanized fence post on there. I've used heat and I've used coil. Well, I say heat. I used some MAP gas. I think I'm gonna have to get my oxyacetylene torch out and really put the heat to these dudes. But this is the only breaker bar that I had, and I broke the breaker bar. And I assume I'm gonna have to get an extension also, because I don't know if I can pick that out of there or not. It's pretty twisted. So each one of them, I think with the exception of this one, popped one time. So they're slowly starting to unbind. I don't know what the torque spec on these things are, but man, I can't imagine they have to be that tight. I mean, I know it's a big truck and it's hauling a load and it's got to be nice and secure, but I mean, I know guys that work at diesel mechanic shops working on trucks like these that are smaller than I am, and maybe you just got to have the right tools. So let me find the right tools and then I'll get back with you all on this. Oh man, the stupid things that we learn. Okay, first off, we saw that. Okay, so then I took that pipe that I was using as a cheater, cut a section of it off, welded a piece of 3/4 stock. It was 3/4 square tubing, welded it to it, and well, you can see I just twisted it around. And so I was not having any luck. By the way, that is my new cheater. It's pretty heavy duty. Okay, so I went back, I found a piece of hex that I had, and I had cut it to a 3/4 square as an adapter from years ago, and got it out here, and I started pulling on it and stuff still wasn't moving. And then I happened to glance at that stud right there. See that giant L in the middle of it? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's left-handed thread. Oh, so no wonder it didn't move. I was just tightening the wheel even more. So I did end up getting my oxygen acetylene torch out, and not the cutting tip, just a little, actually more like a soldering tip. Got it out, and I've gotten 5 of them broken loose so far, and it actually is not too bad with my big pipe and the cheater and everything. I probably will go back and buy a regular 3/4 breaker bar and start using that from now on, as long as I remember which direction I'm going. But for now, let's get these apart. Well, I no sooner than set the phone down and went back to trying to loosen it, and I just twisted my square right off. So this might be it for today until I can get to a hardware store and buy me a bigger, nice breaker bar. This one actually probably would have made it if I had been turning the right direction. So I'll cut this here and I'll get back with you when I get the right tools. Okay, obviously I got the wheels and tires off this side finally, going the right direction. Had to put quite a bit of heat on there with the torch, and I had another one of these breaker bars at work, exact same as the one I broke, so I was able to borrow it, go the right direction with it, and didn't tear it up yet. So start taking this axle cap off. Hopefully we don't tear up that seal behind there. right-handed thread. What a brilliant design. I should have checked that before I used the cheater pipe. Okay, if you don't do this every day, you're clearly not going to have the right tools in your toolbox. And I don't. Okay, so this nut, there's a big axle tube here that your axle slides into. So this nut holds that big old tapered roller bearing in. And I just don't have a socket that big. So what I did, I started out with my little old school Craftsman chisel, and that nut, whatever it's made out of, is so hard that I was just dinging up the end of my chisel. So I found this no-name in the drawer, no-name chisel, and I hit it a couple times, and I put just the tiniest little divot in there. It didn't hurt the well, it didn't get anywhere near the threaded surface, and it didn't hurt the hex surface, or however many sides that is. Looks like 8 maybe. Anyways, it started to move after I hit it a few times, and just like front brakes on an old school car, you take this off, and then you got a washer back here that has one longer finger on it that sits in a keyway. And then it looks like we got another nut. There's something over here like a pin maybe. So maybe I can tap that pin. Yeah, it looks like this washer here is made specifically like this, and one of these deals down here fits that pin, which already looks like it's moved some. So we'll give it a couple taps and try not to tear anything up. We're not going to get aggressive with it. I'm going to use a screwdriver that's not really made to beat on. Yeah, it's turning. I got my arm in the way, I'm sure, but and I know this brake drum is going to weigh like 150 pounds or something probably. So, try not to give myself a hernia getting this thing off here. I watched a video where the guy had his truck set at the right height, and he walked his brake drum over with a two-wheel dolly, and he just tilted the dolly up, and that drum went right on there and flipped on there, and I thought, yeah, I'd like to see that happen. There's no way I'm going to do that. So I'll come up with something if it's too heavy. Get too old to have back problems. Not really want to have them when you're young either. Okay, it was really not too bad. I wrestled heavier. Wow. I hope I've got the right brake parts. So, I guess let me check on that. I'll be back in a few. Well, I hope that's where you can see it. We can go ahead and get this bottom one started. And then kind of tweak it around a little bit. That one's got to go up just a little. That's pretty close. I can almost get it started with that. Trying to make sure I get a real good straight start. There's nothing worse than cross-threading the brake line. Of course, I didn't bring any of my tools over here, so now I'm going to have to run and get those. Alright, finally got it flared. That other flaring tool just wasn't holding. So hopefully that, excuse me, hopefully that'll stick out enough to make it work. I gotta get this in that bender just right. I'm just going to kind of walk that down because I can't really bend it, let it slip with that fitting on there. They're off a little bit. Like I said, that'll get me close enough to get it in there and started. I can kind of tweak it around after that. Pretty soft tubing. This went down against, or not against, but closer to the hub on the other one, so that's why I'm kind of pulling it down. Get those as tight as I can. Now I don't know if that cross line was leaking on the other side or not. But it'll probably break when I try to take it out anyways. I got lucky, I got this line out without it breaking, but I think that was probably just dumb luck. I mean, I did use heat and some Croil and some other stuff. Actually looks like somebody replaced a piece of line on the passenger, the passenger side. So hopefully that all goes well. I got to swap this rubber hose over here because I bought one of those. And then the line that goes into the hose, I have to run a new piece that goes all the way to the front. And all the way to the front is actually the master cylinder, and the booster and everything is underneath the cab, right behind the step. Let's see if I can get this camera over here. So that master cylinder is right there. Well, not the master cylinder, but the big wonky booster. So that's what I'm hooking to, I think. I can't really remember. I bought this last summer. So I got to run from there. I think there's a T on the inside of the frame, and I got to run it. Where is it? I'll get it from over here. Right to the back side of this rubber hose here. So that just shouldn't be too bad, and then if I have to take this out of this block, that should come out okay, I would think. But I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put this axle in. I'll clean up that gasket surface there and use some RTV and I'll get that axle back in with those weird little cone tapered seat washers, and then I can go ahead. I'm going to slap some paint on this. I kind of wire wheeled or wire brushed these big old chunky wheels. I'm going to get some paint on there. I am going to try to paint, at the very least, pressure wash and paint the frame black again, because it was at one time. And then the bed itself, I'm probably going to do it like a machine gray or a smoke gray. And I bought the same gray. I'm going to use it on the wheels. I might just leave the cab, pressure wash it, and leave it patinaed. Back up. Well, alright, I'm batting 1,000 on this project. My other camera died, so missed all the cleanup on this. I already got some RTV on that other surface. There's a little paper thin gasket that's supposed to be on there, but I don't know that it really needs it, because it looked like it was already missing in spots, and there was a ton of RTV on it. So we're just going to go ahead and go right back in with it. Get those bolts to live it. There we go. I don't know if these things are got like a burr inside of them or what, but they just about have to be threaded on some of them. Alright, so this is where I'm at on the dump truck. I got the driver's side rear back together again. I didn't film changing out the wheel cylinders, and I apologize for that. What I'm going to do is take apart the other side, get it ready to go. I'm going to get it down to where I stopped filming. You know, I took it apart and cleaned it up some, and I know I got a little bit of brake line work on there. I'm not going to really film the brake line on the other side. It's pretty much the same thing. I'm hoping I don't break those. Hope I don't have to replace them. So this is the front wheel. All I did was take it off, clean it up, paint it. Yes, I'm aware there's paint on the tire. I'm going to scrub that off with some Scotch-Brite. Here's the other front wheel. And I'll show you where I'm at on this. So I got this side apart, and it was way worse. The wheel cylinders were leaking bad on this side, and it also looks like the grease seal was leaking on the rear of the hub. So now I've got to order one of those. So you're not going to notice it because it's going to take like 2 seconds on the video, but there's going to be a little bit of a drop off on the video here. I got to wait probably a week to get the part. And hope it's the right one, because nobody seems to have exactly what I need for this thing. So yeah, I got it It's set up on a block of wood and a concrete block, and the other side some scrap steel. And I'm trying to keep the tires off the ground for as long as I can before I try to drive this thing, because anytime at all it sits, man, they get egg-shaped bad and it will beat you to death. When I drove this thing home, I couldn't hardly stand to ride in it. And my wife wanted me to take the highway because she was following me and she was tired from hanging out all day. So 55 miles an hour in this thing, and it's a rough ride. So we're gonna get some more stuff done on it here. I'm probably gonna stop on this and work on another project for a little while I'm waiting on parts. Just keep knocking out one or two things at a time. That's all you can do, is stay at it. Okay, so these are not quite like your standard drum brakes. You've got one brake adjuster here, one brake adjuster here for the two wheel cylinders. Pretty sure they both shove out. Maybe not, maybe I'm wrong about that, because there's two bolts here in the middle, and I don't know if they go through the backing plate. I think they do. So they would have to pivot there, so I guess they couldn't shove both ways. I'm not sure why they put a double cylinder on there if it's not shoving both, but that's really the only way it could work. So, and I know nothing about these trucks, I'm just learning as I go. So what I did, without taking this whole assembly apart, because it kind of looks like more of a nightmare than regular drum brakes, and it takes a little bit of time. I took my locking pliers and just kind of pushed that spring up off of it. I gotta tighten them up a little bit. Because those springs are so stiff, right like that. Regular tools, I just don't know if you could cut it with a regular brake tool. Now this is weird. This is like a floating pin. You probably can't see it, it's on the other side of the spindle, but there's a floating pin that goes to this spring. There's one right here too for this spring. And it's just got a groove in it, and that's what the spring grabs on. You would figure it would kind of pop off there on its own, but I guess it doesn't, because it's still on. All the axle seals I found online, they don't look like they're right for this. So I'm probably going to try to find something local, and that way I can take it back if it's wrong. I see that one's right on the edge of going. Find my big screwdriver here. I don't know if you know what, I know you know what dirt daubers are, but have you ever heard of Packer bees? For some reason I get them real bad around here, and they build in a similar style, but when they get done, everything inside there is like pollen yellow. I mean, it's a serious amount of pollen in there, and they just filled this brake shoe up over here. So I'm kind of chiseling it out as I go. That spring was in the way. I've already used 2 cans of brake clean on this. Trying to get it cleaned up. This and the big, huge, greasy drum over there. So now, with those 2 springs off, I should be able to spread this out just enough. Take the 2 standard bolts out from the backside here, and then I can kind of pry those shoes out of the way, and I'm able to pull that wheel cylinder out without too much trouble. So let me get a wrench and or a socket. I'll try to figure out what size that is. I forgot already. Got that big old wheel cylinder and just that little bitty 5/16 bolt. Well, let me get two of them. Hit the pry on it. There it goes. Pretty well crusted in there, but really not too bad to get out. It's got this little shield on there. I don't know if it's just a heat shield or a dirt shield or whatever that is, but brush away some of this crud here and get a little more of those packer bees out. When they get in there, man, they really build. They fill the whole thing up. Okay, I took these pins out. They were pretty crusty and they had a little brake fluid on them because they were stuck down in that old wheel cylinder. So I'm going to put a little lube on them and slip them in the new boots. I don't know why all of them were stuck out like that. I don't know if it just rests easier that way. But the little disc inside there, that thing is maxed out. So what I had to do on the other side, I'm going to do it on this side too. I kind of get my hands on both sides of it and push them in. You have to be careful because they're pretty flat. They're not really concave very much. And they'll kind of rock around on you. I'm just mashing them in the best I can. Once I get them down, I think they're out of the way. I'll kind of hold this up there and make sure the little forks are turned the right direction. Slip one in, and then I think I have to pry the other side in. But like I said, it's still way easier than I think than taking all of this apart. And all I gotta do is get my bolts lined up back here in the back. If you're doing your own brake job on one of these or something similar, dual wheel cylinders, both wheel cylinders top and bottom on this one were the same, exact same part number, and both of them came with bleeders. The thing is, the input line for the fluid comes into this one, and then there's a line that goes out into this one, and then the bleeder is at the very top of this one. So I'll go ahead and get it started. I don't really tighten it up because I'll probably gravity feed, gravity bleed, gravity feed. I've been working on fuel systems too much. The other cool thing about doing the top one and then the bottom one is, if you're like me and you got a short attention span, I forgot the plate. Anyways, if you got a short attention span, the springs are just the opposite top to bottom, so you remember which side goes where. Seems to make it a little easier that way. Alright, so what I do, this pin doesn't really, the spring doesn't stay put on the pin when I'm pulling on it. So what I'll do is I'll clamp my pliers here on the end of this pin. So with any luck, that spring doesn't fly off and hit me in the face while I'm trying to stretch it out. There's that one. And I'll tap around on this shoe a little bit. Try to get it seated back in. And then this one hooks in this hole. There ain't really anything I can do to hold it. On. Now if I remember from the last side, the bottom springs are a little bit tougher just because they're at an upward angle. But it's basically the same process. Take the two bolts out, take the springs off, take the two bolts out, separate the shoes, pull that off, put the new one on. Stuck my finger in gear oil. Anyways, so second verse, same as the first. Alright, put the little push pins in, and I should start one first. This one's down here on the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and start a bolt in there first before I put this other plunger in. Probably put the other bolt in too. All right. and gentlemen, no, this is not Mambo number 5. This is the easiest way I could come up with to change 2 wheel cylinders of a dump truck. Well, you may have an easier way. I'd like to say I'd love to hear how to do it an easier way, but I honestly hope I don't have to do it again. Like I said before, I've only got this thing just long enough to do the jobs I need to do, and then I can pass it along to the next do-it-yourselfer. Alright, I'm going to put these brake lines back together on the back side so I don't forget where I was at with it. And then as soon as I get that wheel seal, we'll put that in and get this back together again. Well, originally this video started out to be one day of what I can wrench on and get done. And I did end up getting my... Why does that have electrical tape around there? Somebody has already had this apart. Anyways, by the way, I've never had one of these apart. I've only messed with Chevrolet starters. I don't know how different they are. We're gonna find out. So it started out, I was gonna bleed the brakes on this, and another line towards the front which had a rubber hose on it, it started leaking. Maybe that's where I'm at. No, let's see. I was replacing the front brake hoses on the wheels, and while I was fighting those, I had to start it up and turn the wheel so I could use the power steering. The fuel hose started to leak just before the fuel pump. So I thought, well, I'll fix that later. The gas that's in there is old, doesn't matter if it leaks out. Put something under it to catch it and moved on. Well, then I noticed the radiator was leaking on my piece of carpet that I was sitting on. So I drained the radiator so it would quit dripping on me. Finished the brake hose on that side. Replaced the fuel hose, no big deal. Oh, I see what they did. They gave you an access panel here to get a hold of those brushes while you put this back together. Nice job, Ford. So after I repaired all that, I started it up once again, and I realized that there was gas running out of the passenger side exhaust pipe. That's not supposed to happen. So I thought I better check the oil in this thing just in case. Well, it turns out I found out after I rebuilt this carburetor, because I don't know anything about Fords or Holleys or anything like that. I left the gasket off of the power valve, and apparently the gas was running straight into the float bowl, out where the gasket was supposed to be, and straight down into the intake. Checked my oil, drained it, and I had 15 quarts of about 50-50 gas mix. So anybody know where that spring goes? Anyways, I changed the oil. I finished up the brakes, the brake hoses on the front, soldered the radiator, filled it back up, it stopped leaking. Had my son try to help me bleed the brakes, realized that the line from the master cylinder to the booster underneath the floor was leaking at a rubber joint. Went to replace that line, broke another line that was attached to it. So I replaced both of those. Started to re-bleed it and ran out of brake fluid. Fantastic. I really don't even know what I'm looking at here. I don't know if there is a long story short to this. This starter is chewed up, buddy. I don't know if you can see that drum down in there, but it ain't pretty. Let's see, I guess I pull this pin here and lift this armature out. Worst case scenario, I'm gonna have to buy another one anyway, so. That's pretty scraped up, even though it's still got a decent amount of brush left on it. So I'll probably just clean it up, put it back together, and see if I can make it work. Where was I at? Ran out of brake fluid trying to bleed the brakes. So I thought, well, I need to move it anyways because it was in my way. Started up, drove it up the hill, it was fine. After I had fixed the carburetor, I thought, well, it was probably out of adjustment. So I went to readjust the carburetor and it died on me, of course, because I was moving screws around and stuff, and it just wouldn't start anymore, wouldn't crank, wouldn't do anything. So I just got the brakes bled out. I think they're okay, but I have not been able to start it and check it with the booster working. So this is where I am at. And there are little pieces of paper and plastic rolling around in here, and I don't know what's going on. Alright, so I hosed it down with a little bit of brake clean. Really the hardest part about doing a starter ever is trying to get the brushes back on the barrel. I'm sure there's a different name for this. I just call it the barrel. I don't know, there's a whole lot that can be done. Pretty much just want to kind of get it cleaned up. I think I'm going to go ahead and put the nose back on it. Alright, I'm going to try to put this nose back on there. It looks like this dowel pin here goes in this groove here to line you up. I probably should have paid attention to that when I took it apart. Although I'm thinking I can't. Maybe I got to put the armature back in there first, because there's a spring that sits on here that shot out when I took that nose piece off. So I'll just wipe this down a little bit. Hit the pin here in the grass. That's where I keep my pins. Okay, so this spring I think goes here, fits in this pocket here. And I'll pick it up so I don't get weeds stuck in it. Now what I got to do is pull those brushes back and get the edges seated one at a time. It'd probably be better if I had like needle nose pliers or something instead of my sausage fingers doing this, but you know. I'll probably got my head in the way for most of this. Main thing here is just keep pressure on it. Be patient. Try to stay on camera. I mean, you know, if that's what you're doing. These brushes are like little rectangles of bronze, maybe, and coal. I'm not really 100% positive. I probably knew it one time. We're getting close here. Just decided to kick up and go crazy, so sorry about that. Okay, I'm gonna have to back up a little bit. I got one that's kind of on an angle. There it goes. And seat the nose, seat the cap, and then the trick is getting these extra long bolts back down in there to go into the thread, because chances are you're not anywhere near where you need to be. Looks like it's in line with this ear, so we'll line that up can see it. I'll just try to carefully drop that down in there. Carefully, as I'm like jamming it down in there. There's a little something in the way. This one looks wide open. We'll go ahead and get a bolt in it. Maybe. For some reason that feels weird. Threads on this are not very good. Maybe I'll try this one first with the, I'm getting the tape off of it. I don't know why. Got tape on it. Spin it backwards till it drops. And then start it. That way you know you're not cross-threading it. You just got crappy threads. It looks like I'm trying to start there, so. Yeah. Thought I forgot something for just a second. What I gotta do is put that armature cover on there. And then put that band on it that holds it. Pretty neat idea, really. Let's see. Now let's make sure the brushes are free. Not bound up. They look like they're moving. Okay. That's not bound up. I guess this tucks under here. That sits there. And this goes like this. Like I said, I've not ever had one of these apart before. A lot of times your old starters like this, if the brushes are okay, you can just kind of clean them up. You know, maybe they got stuck from debris, or maybe something made a nest in them while they were sitting. For some reason I can't get that nut started. There we go. Okay, well, I jammed some plastic underneath there, just cut up a whole water bottle. Let's see if I can get it under there just a little bit more. I really don't think that's the problem though. I'll show you why here in just a second. Okay, so still does nothing, but if I hold this down like the Bendix and the gears working and the gears stuck out there in the flywheel, if I hit it, it spins it. So what I got going on is this is not being drawn down by the magnets. I guess that's how that works. So since it really wasn't that hard to take apart, I guess I will take it apart one more time and see if I can figure out what's going on with the magnets, and we'll go from there. Well, I finally got my starter from Rock Auto. they look to be the same. Got the same tooth count. Orientation of the nose is the same. So we're going to stick it on there and give it a try. Okay, so it does run again. I ended up putting the original solenoid back on because the used one that I got from my dad gets hot on the outgoing side. I thought maybe it was the cable, but the cable seems pretty good, but I replaced it anyways because I had a new one. And then it still wouldn't crank. So I went and got a different used battery, which is also low while it's on a charger. And the other one was so dead it wouldn't even read a voltage on the charger like this one is. So this one was only mostly dead. So it does start, but found another problem. Every time I drive this, I try to figure out why it beats me to death. I thought it was the tires, but if you look at that drive shaft, it almost looks like it's been pinched. So I think because I don't know of any dump truck junkyards, I'm gonna have to Frankenstein a drive shaft that's just slightly more balanced than this one is. Stay tuned for that. here's the new drive shaft. Got it all bolted in. My welds are not the greatest. That is a very hot welder. It's for a MIG. It's a big MIG welder, and it's also very old. And I think the lining needs replaced, and it kept getting hung up, and so I didn't get the clean weld around there that I wanted, but it did penetrate well. Like I said before, this was not a balanced drive shaft anyways. And this is way straighter than the other one. So we should be in good shape here. So all that's left is to put this thing to work and pray to God and anybody else that'll help me that you know, it doesn't break or anything else breaks on it. Because I'm seriously done working on this thing. I want to use it. I want to get some work done with it instead of on it. So anyways, all this footage I got on here, I think I'm going to add it to the brake video. So if you're seeing this, it's probably at the end of the brake replacement video. And I should have, you know, recorded all my other repairs on here. I know I got a little bit of the starter, but I fixed so much junk on this truck, and for this reason, this is why I don't own Fords, because even the stuff that is simple underneath here is also complicated. Now I made this brake line complicated by putting all these bends in it, because I didn't want to cut it down and reflare it at the time. So I bent it out to take up some of the length. But that's 2 full 6-foot pieces there. So with any luck, nothing else underneath this thing gives out. Although I am starting to see some drips. My camera's crooked. On that exhaust pipe. And I'm thinking I probably got a rear main seal going bad, and I am not pulling this meatball of a transmission out of here. So I might have to get some of that rear main sealer. The stuff you put in your oil and it swells it up. Because I'm just not ready to tear into that. So thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe. Find me on Instagram. And until next time, I hope you and your car stay tuned. I hope this thing stays tuned.